10-to-1 by weight. So here we're measuring out about 2,200 grams of part B, and then of course that'll mean 220 grams of part A. So we want to measure that out on a gram scale. You don't want to try to do this by volume. Now, since this is a very fast setting silicone, you want to keep track of your time, because as soon as the A and B components are combined, you only have 5 minutes of working time, and that includes your mixing and pouring. So remember, with 7110 you have 5-minute working time and 30-minute demold, and that's at 70 degrees or room temperature. If you have warmer temperatures, it's going to be accelerated, so keep that in mind. In summer weather here in Texas, 7110 is extremely fast setting. Now we're going to pour this over our coffee mug, and one of the things you'll notice that I do here is I pour around the mug, and then I'm going to pour into the mug. And the reason I want to pour into the mug before I completely fill the mold is to eliminate any chance of the mug trying to float. Even though it is heavy, it would have a tendency to float with that dense silicone. So we want to be careful to pour all around it and into it so that it doesn't try to lift off that foam core base. And now we're ready to set our timer for 30 minutes. And then we should be ready to demold our part. Now, if you're in a rush and you need this even faster than 30 minutes, you can always put this outside in a hot car or by a space heater. Now, you'll notice we left the mixing bucket right next to the mold. And one of the reasons we didn't clean that out yet is you can use that to check and make sure everything is cured completely before you demold that part, because you don't want to start demolding anything that hasn't cured completely. So it's always good to check that in the mixing bucket first and make sure that you're not demolding too early. Now, the nice thing about a foam core mold is you just tear off the foam core, revealing the mold inside. And since 7110 is a very soft silicone, for a lot of parts you can make a seamless mold. And in this case, we're going to have one seam, but it's going to be on the inside of the handle of the mug. We're going to reach in with a scalpel and cut that one area open, and everything else will stay connected, giving us an otherwise seamless mold, except for that one area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have Larry help me stretch that out, and then we're going to cut that little pass-through area just on the handle of the mug. And once that's cut open, we'll be able to demold our coffee cup and then cast a rubber copy. And you'll notice here, really about the only thing holding the mug in place at this point is suction. So we want to very carefully ease it out of the mold, and then we'll be ready to start casting our PT Flex 20 copies. Now, at this point, it's taken us all of about 45 minutes to get to this step. Now, since it's 70 degrees, you have about a 5-minute working time. So if it's warmer than that, that time will be reduced. So you want to be prepared for that and have everything ready to go, your mold ready to pour into immediately, because that clock starts ticking as soon as those two components mix in the mixing cup. And here we're going to add a little bit of polycolor white, because we want to match that ceramic mug as close as possible, because again, in a prop making environment, we're going to have to match a real world item as closely as we can. So we want to have that real mug standing by to match that color and get that as close as we can. And if you're dealing with a color really nuanced that's really hard to match, it's a good idea to just pigment your part B first and then add the part A. And that way you don't waste valuable mixing time trying to match a specific color. And now ready to pour our PT Flex into our mold, and we don't need any mold release, because since we're casting a urethane into a silicone, here specifically a platinum silicone, we don't need any mold release. And in fact, mold release might create problems later on, creating a slippery prop or a prop that needs to be degreased because of the mold release stuck on the surface. So you want to make sure you don't use any mold release when you're casting PT Flex. And the nice thing with PT Flex, again, it's very fast curing. So here, this is about 45 minutes later, and we're ready to demold our cast mug. And what I'm doing here is reaching down into the mug and breaking the suction. That's the only thing that really holds a part of this kind of configuration into the mold, is that suction. That's the only difficulty in demolding this. Once we break that suction hold on the middle of the mug, we're able to pull that out pretty easily. And there we have our finished PT Flex 20 casting. And a mold like this can turn out a lot of castings. We have molds like this in our library of molds that are 10 years old, and we're still able to pull copies out of them. And now you'll notice because we put that seam on the inside of the handle of the mug, all we got to do is pinch off those little bits of flashing left over, and our coffee cup is ready to go. And it matches almost exactly our real coffee mug. And now my daughters can put this to use in their latest action film endeavors.